Hello, hello, welcome back everybody, Mr. Minority with another Heroscape ranking. This time we're starting on the large sets. We're going with Orm's Return. Got a little bit maybe of a potential future video preview here on the logo of my shirt. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking about Orm's Return. I'll be honest with you, this is my least favorite by a country mile for the large sets, and especially in terms of designs. But still pretty decent. I really like the large sets. You look across a giant battlefield and you see, lots of smaller figures, medium-sized figures, and then punctuated by, a few gaze, magnetically pulling your gaze to them, large figures. So it's quite a sight. So always like to see these sets. That being said, let's get started. Shall we? Brunac. So Brunac's an interesting one because when I was younger, not going to go too much into the background, but had a bit of a kind of a religious bent. So we actually tried to, maybe the parents didn't like demonic looking figures, so we actually masked him up with duct tape. So I think I might have mentioned something to the similar effect with Taylor. He stayed masked up for over 10 years, I think, and then I finally unmasked him maybe about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I was like, this is a very beautiful sculpt. I'm going to put him in the solid B tier, very high B tier. I almost want to put him in A tier. I really like the sculpt. Very interesting, creative, large giant figure with, the kind of hellish sort of thematic material and design. The defense is a little interesting. I wouldn't expect a figure looking like this to have that much defense. In terms of how good he is, so this is really board dependent, this particular figure. If you have a board filled with a bunch of lava, this guy's going to carry his points, Very unlikely, right? Because, there was just the Fulcrum Wasteland set, which wasn't a huge set, so you couldn't necessarily add a ton of lava unless you bought a lot of them. And it was, if I remember correctly, an exclusive, only Toys R Us sort of deal, which I only got the one set. I did, and I was a kid. My parents got it. Anyway, had one of them and still have one. So there's not going to be a chance that there's going to be a ton of lava, but just say the theoretical board is filled with lava. This guy's really gonna, carry the points. Other than that, still pretty decent choice. Again, the life is pretty low, but pretty decent attack. And then again, that defense is really strong, really strong. One of the strongest in the game. I think the third strongest, and tied with a few. And then has carry, which again, depending on the board, can be pretty darn decent. Especially with range figures, because he is a huge 8. So you could put him adjacent to him, like on a level 6 or 7, something like that, and give him height advantage, especially slow movers. Or you could even just be adjacent to them and they'd be on one side of you, and then the height's on the other, pop them over. So really potentially strategic, pretty decent figure with the versatility. And of course you have the Blood Hungry special attack, which is pretty decent, not necessarily anything game-changing relative to the other abilities, depending again on the board. Keep saying it. But pretty solid, like it overall. Charos. I'm going to put Charos in the B tier, and this is very unusual. I think, in my opinion, he is by far, I can't speak, the worst dragon in terms of design. He's not bad, but he's kind of goofy looking, for lack of a better term. But, oh my goodness, that's where it ends in terms of not taking this guy seriously, the look. He is very bulky. He is the bulkiest, in fact, of all the base Heroscape characters. 9 life is the most, by 1, and then defense is 5. This guy is a tough nut to crack, especially if you got Kelda holding his tail, hiding behind him. This guy's tough. He's not the best at taking a lot of range attacks, but a one-on-one brawl with 5 attack, 5 defense, he's not going to be killing anyone super quickly, but he is going to be a big, huge plug. If you want to try to flank or something, or your opponent's going to flank, excuse me, and you have Charos, and you want to plug up a hole, you got no bigger plug than him, basically. Obviously he's huge, and as I said before, the larger the figure is, the more likely that ranged figures from all over the battlefield can see him and attack him. So that's kind of what you get for being huge, but pretty good figure. Obviously, massive amount of points. I probably would say not quite worth it. Again, that's about half an army, or half an army, depending on what kind of point game you're playing. I would say 190 would probably be a little bit better. 210 is a bit much. I don't think he is good enough for taking on lots of common squads and that sort of thing to really justify that much points. He'll be swarmed, again, assuming that they're ranged. If they are melee, maybe not so much because of his counter strike, again, unless they have some pretty high attack, at least 3 or 4 attack, I would say. Anything lower than that, and they're going to be counter strike right and left, and even 3 attack, it's fairly in the bag. So but again, in terms of design, I'm not a fan of Charizard design. I think they could have done quite a bit more with maybe more forced kind of leaf design. But he's a dragon, damn it. I love dragons. Love me some dragons. Biased there, but I'm still gonna put him in the B tier. Deathwalker 8000. We're going pretty decently strong here. And I think that's basically all of Orm's Return. They're all pretty much on a similar level of one another. I would put Deathwalker 8000 here. Still a solid B tier, man. I wish I could, kind of. These are all high B tier. I'm not as big a fan of the design as I am the Deathwalker 9000, but that makes sense because that's the bigger brother, I suppose. The special ability is pretty good. Whereas with Deathwalker 9000, you can use it and hopefully take out a few. Deathwalker 8000, you literally could take out an entire army if they're all within your range. It's extremely unlikely, but you can keep attacking, And there have been a few times where he's really, kind of pulled through with that. Again, maybe a little overpriced because he has some massive defense. Speaking about massive defense of Brunek, Deathwalker 8000 has the second highest defense in the game. Second only to his older brother or bigger brother, however you want to put it. 8 defense, that's massive. But unlike Brunek, who has a chance to mess up once or twice depending on the role, Deathwalker 8000 cannot mess up. Okay, he has 1 life. Same thing as Deathwalker 9000 and all the Deathwalkers. If you mess up with the 8 die, again, not super likely, but it can happen. You're gonna fall immediately. So. Gotta be careful. You got the 7 range, to kind of mitigate that, shoot from afar. But yeah, I would say maybe a little bit pricey if he had, maybe a little more life that make it a little more safe. But again, pretty good special attack and really, good for countering lots of weak, cushy squads like the Roman Archers and the Arrow Gruts, that sort of thing. Design-wise, pretty decent. It would be interesting if maybe there were like a rocket attack. It's kind of interesting that he seems to have, I think, almost like missiles on both of his arms. One's like a giant rocket and the other one looks like a kind of a missile salvo launcher or something. So it's kind of funny, the rapid fire attacks like you think of a machine gun. But anyway, whatever. It's still pretty good. That'd be interesting if he had some, bursty large attack as well as a choice. But still pretty good. Dune, I'm going to put in the C tier. Now, I know people are going to, complain about this and like, oh, they love him. And Dune has a special place in many people's hearts. I'm not a fan of the design. It's kind of boring. It's not awful. Again, I really, maybe there is 1 or 2, but I can't think off the top of my mind any Heroscape design that's such outright awful. But this is just mediocre for me. The 4 eyes is like okay, but he just, I don't know. There's not a lot going for the sculpt. In terms of abilities, it's pretty decent if you can get it going. He's more of a support and kind of, dazed and confused sort of thing, almost kind of gimmicky, if you will. He just doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of, putting on pressure. He's more of support and then helping other guys, to go in. So the ability is pretty decent. Krypton Gaze. The defense is nice. That's nice. Helps him stay alive to support longer. But again, with the 3 attack, you know, you're not going to be really punching a hole in armies, and then of course with the 4 life, you're not going to necessarily be viable either for going up and trading blows with the heroes on the front. But again, good support. Interesting kind of figure, but not my favorite design. Subak Na. Okay, so Subak Na, this guy's gonna go in front. The Bone Dragon in front says I. Let me put him in front here. I like him a little bit better than Brunek, I would say. I wouldn't put him A tier quite because he's close. He's close, I would say. Just like Brunek was close, he's even closer. I might even put him in A tier. Really nice design. Maybe the wings could be a little bit larger. Maybe you could have instead. I mean, I guess you could consider him a dragon. I guess technically he's a wyvern, wyvern, how you pronounce it, because he doesn't have the 4 or 6 limbs. 4 of them being appendages, however you want to demarcate it, or define it. He only has the legs and then the wings. So he's lacking that in terms of the other dragon designs in the Heroscape game. And again, he's not a true dragon in terms of his class. He's a Hive Lord. And then, interestingly enough, a decent support Hive Lord. It's kind of funny doing multiple battles that we've seen, and as I said before about like scanning the battlefield, and you see figures, and then you see this guy sitting at the back. It's kind of funny because he's so huge. He's a huge 12, one of the largest figures in the game, at least in terms of height. And yeah, his support with Hive Supremacy is pretty decent. You're gonna have, if you have a Morrow army, have lots of guys rolling, whatever it might be, the Morrow Hive or the Morrow Warriors, the Stingers, he's going to support them all. And, adding 1 to all of them, it adds up. And it's kind of funny to see him sitting at the back, but that's what he is. And to be honest with you, not the best in terms of meta. He is pretty pricey, and he's extremely average in terms of stats. But then he's not average in terms of he's huge. You can see him all over the battlefield. He'll fall very, very, very quickly. Especially because of the one thing that is not average battle stats, and that is his massive bitch slapping 7 attack. So he's definitely one of those that once he's done supporting, if he comes in, deliver maybe 1 massive attack and then die. Maybe he can survive 2 if because you've near the end of the match and there's not as much firepower that can be levied against him, but he's gonna fall really quickly because not only is he very average in his stats with a 3 life, 3 defense and 5 life, but the guy's gonna be incentivized to attack him with that 7 attack to prevent him from said massive hammer being set down. So pretty decent, pretty decent set overall. And well, let me talk about the design maybe a little more. I like the Bone Dragon design. Pretty decent. I wouldn't say it knocks it out of the park, but pretty good. It would have been maybe a little bit more interesting if it were kind of like the other dragon designs with 4 legs and stood on all 4 legs or something. But it still looks pretty good, and it's interesting that it is distinguished from the other dragons. So that's pretty nice. And of course, it's on the front of the design box, at the front of the box of the design. So overall, though, it's still a good set. I still like it. It's the weakest, I would say, in my opinion, but that's because it's standing amongst giants, maybe literally in some cases. But still a good set. This is a shorter video because hey, there's only 5 figures. But Orm's Return, first large set. And yeah, next week will be Ragnar's Vision, large set number 2. Not gonna do a Close Alliance, unfortunately. Don't have it. Price kind of speaks for itself. Do want those figures. So hey, if you want me to review it, send it to me. Yeah, that'd be lovely. Anyway, so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one.